Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Matthew Stafford could be this offseason's biggest QB domino. Could Stafford be on the move to New York or Pittsburgh? Plus, the Myles Garrett situation, early look at the 2025 draft class and more in Albert Breer's mailbagged, in New York. I think the Los Angeles Rams QB would be joining a team that's much closer than people think. They've got a franchise left tackle, Andrew Thomas, and budding number one receiver, Malik Nabers, on offense, and a defense that's well built around three cornerstones, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, along the front. They also have some financial wiggle room to land Stafford, then use Stafford to lure more veterans. Add to that the fact that you've got some folks there that'll be fighting for their jobs in the fall, and are under a fair amount of pressure to find a quarterback after the Daniel Jones contract didn't work out, and I could see the Giants acting with some urgency. Dave, I'd say an outside QB, then Justin Fields, then Russell Wilson. Prior to Super Bowl week, and knowing things weren't perfect between Wilson and the team, I thought Wilson loomed as a treadwater type of option for the Steelers, if other efforts failed in 2025. But seeing the pro-Wilson narrative on 25 pushed through? I don't think that's going over great inside that building. Meanwhile, the team would love to keep working with Fields. I just don't think they'll hand him the starting job. So the idea of Aaron Rodgers or Stafford could appeal to the Steelers. If that doesn't work, I think Pittsburgh looks at Fields with someone there to compete with him. Sports, I think the New England Patriots just have to get good players on the roster, so if there's a guy they see on the level of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, be it Jalen Walker, Mason Graham or whoever else, and above the draft class's blue-chip cliff, then you take him and figure out the rest later. But if your view of the class is Carter and Hunter, then a cluster of players, I'm plucking the best defensive tackle out of that cluster. LSU's Will Campbell, Texas's Kelvin Banks, Oregon's Josh Conerly Jr. and Ohio State's, injured, Josh Simmons would be the candidates. The issue with that group is, of course, they're all flawed. But so is everyone past Hunter and Carter. And while that screams for a team to trade down, it's not like teams picking later in the top 10 won't see the same thing, and wouldn't be more likely to want to move down rather than move up. It's a weird spot to be in, and it's why the Patriots need to hope that at least one of Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders get hot and go in the top 3, or someone really wants whichever one of them falls to number 4. Precursor, I hate the concept any prospect is rising and or falling down draft boards. It's ridiculous. Things aren't that volatile, and the reason why, in the months leading up to the draft, you see guys rise or fall is because the media, and I'll include myself in this, get caught up on where teams have been since the end of the football season. There are exceptions, of course, but not a ton of them. Okay, so in this case, I never heard anyone from a team say that either Ward or Sanders was in the class of the first 3 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, selected last year. And I might go so far as to say the next 3 from 2024, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, were better prospects, too. Now, I'm open to being surprised with coaches' and scouts' opinions in the coming months. It's always fun to have top-shelf quarterback prospects involved. But in this case, to me, Ward and Sanders being seen on the level of Williams, Daniels or May would constitute rising rather than falling. Big yikes, I just don't know. Both sides are dug in. I don't think money solves it. I believe Garrett is being forthright in saying he wants to go compete for a championship. So finding a fix at quarterback would probably be the first step toward the Cleveland Browns finding a way to hold on to him. But finding a fix that'll put the Browns in a place to compete at the top of the AFC won't be easy, especially since they're still weighed down by the enormity of the Deshaun Watson contract, 2 years left. I'd say the most likely ending to this story is the Browns and Garrett find some compromise, maybe with an agreement to aggressively build for this year and trade him in 2026 if things don't work out. But that's just a guess. Casual, my guess right now is the Minnesota Vikings don't franchise tag Sam Darnold, and instead let the quarterback go to the market, asking that he give them a shot to match any offer he gets. To that end, Minnesota actually could transition tag Darnold, which would come with a less expensive tender, and the chance to match, though without compensation coming back if the team declines to match. I know the Vikings really like J.J. McCarthy, and so long as he's able to regain his weight and strength in the coming weeks, I think they'd be comfortable going with him as the starter. Joshy, I like Aaron Glenn for this reason: he understands the dynamics of that job, since he was a player there, and wanted it anyway. I think, rightly, the New York Jets prioritized that in searching for their next coach. Too often, over the past decade, people who've worked there have lamented everything that goes into being there, from ownership to the media to the idea that the place is a circus. They needed someone to embrace the challenge of it. I also think we saw in Detroit his ability to manage through a rebuild. His side of the ball was built slower from an investment standpoint than the offense, keep guys engaged, and then handle disaster, the injuries this year, while developing talent and winning at a high level. All that stuff, as I see it, should translate into being a head coach. As for Darren Moogie, I can just say he's incredibly well respected, worked through different regimes in Denver and, over the past couple years, worked with GM George Paton to get the team out of the fallout from the disastrous Russell Wilson trade. So while projecting a guy into the GM seat can be tougher than projecting who'll be a good head coach, Moogie does have a good level of experience and solid makeup for the job. Henry, my guess is that the Dallas Cowboys will be off the table. They're too big a ratings driver, and don't need that platform to deliver a big number. So I'd bet the league would want to save that game for sweeps or something. It's also rare that it's a division game. It's happened 3 times in the 23 previous iterations of the Thursday night opener, which would take the Giants and Washington Commanders off the table, though the NFL might like the idea of putting Jaden Daniels on a big stage to open the season. You mad, bro? Pittsburgh fans angry after day 1 of Pirates spring training, annoyed with Kenny Pickett's Super Bowl ring. Kenny Pickett winning a Super Bowl has certainly touched a nerve within Steeler Nation. So has the state of the Pittsburgh's current quarterback situation. It took 1 whole day for some bad news to come out of spring training for the Pirates. And some people didn't appreciate my gambling advice. That gives us plenty to go within this week's You Mad, Bro? I guess he was trying to spare us fans when he goes on the IR after opening day when he realizes he has chronic symptoms in his right wrist. It's our fault for thinking this organization will ever change. Here's another Pirates email from David. The subject heading is You Have to Stop. We all have to stop criticizing Bob Nutting. The more we criticize him, the more he says, probably out loud to himself, really? Well, stand back and watch how much worse I can do. Just leave the man be, and maybe he'll get bored and sell the team. Well, Dave, if he hasn't been bored to death by the results of his ownership so far, that's probably not going to be the reason he sells the team at this point. So, I'm going to quote the great English poet John Michael Osborne and emphatically state, I don't want to stop. Douglas had to get a shot in on me because I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl when I posted my gambling advice column. As an avid follower of your column, I have learned over the years to take your advice and do the opposite. Thanks for picking the Chiefs, because I won big on the Eagles. Did you follow my advice on the Chiefs covering the second half, where I told you to bet big money? Or either of the 2-point conversion props that I hit? Or Jalen Hurts for scoring a touchdown? Or Hurts to be the MVP over Saquon Barkley if Philly won? PGH commenter replied to Bill Cowher's belief that the Steelers will at least entertain discussions about bringing Aaron Rodgers in to be the franchise's quarterback next year. They meaning the team? Or they meaning this town, as you said? I don't think it is as much the same thing as you might. I don't sense the enthusiasm within the town as much as I get the willingness of the front office to go in that direction. Or, at the very least, perhaps keep Russell Wilson. Which, come to think of it, is probably why the town isn't as enthusiastic of the Rodgers idea. If so, glad I could help. Aaron Rodgers' interest hit with NSFW reaction from Steelers defender. When Aaron Rodgers signed with the New York Jets, people instantly viewed the team as a playoff contender. However, it is clear that Rodgers is well past his prime. His stint with the Jets failed miserably as they remained one of the worst teams in football. Now, the Jets are moving on, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have been discussed as a potential landing spot. It's safe to say that Steelers safety Deshaun Elliott does not want Rodgers coming to Pittsburgh. The Steelers are the betting favorites to land Aaron Rodgers, and Deshaun Elliott made his thoughts on the matter known with a comment on a post that shared the betting lines. "Leave his *** at the retirement home," Elliott said in the comment. "Rodgers is now 41, and he isn't getting any younger. It was abundantly clear that he can't do the things that made him one of the best players in the NFL, but it's looking like he is going to keep trying. If he ends up with the Steelers, he is going to have to prove himself to Elliott." Last season, the Steelers were anchored by two quarterbacks that were signed in the offseason, as Russell Wilson and Justin Fields both saw the field in Pittsburgh. Fields was the starter at the beginning of the season, but when Wilson had recovered from an injury, he got the nod. The Steelers had a solid season with Wilson as their starter, as they were able to make a run to the playoffs, but if they want to take the next step, they are going to need better QB play. Wilson looked better than he did in Denver, but like Rodgers, he can't do a lot of the things that once made him so great. So, is the answer to the QB predicament in Pittsburgh to sign Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. He didn't look good on the Jets, and at the age of 41, it's silly to expect that to change. Still, there's a chance that this move happens. Scotty White serves as Clutchpoint's Chicago Bulls and Michigan football reporter, in addition to covering NCAA football and basketball as an associate editor. Scotty is a graduate of the University of Michigan and has been in the sports journalism industry since 2020. And are you a fan? What do you think about Aaron Rodgers' situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.